Pete Golding is turning this Rebel defense into a surprisingly elite unit by playing mad scientist. Muhaha.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today, we can't ignore it anymore. This is the release day of the most useless poll in college football history. It gets attention basically because they started doing it 100 years ago. But we break down why it still stirs so much conversation and why non-ball knowers voting in the poll is a problem. But then we talk about the cornerback battle, where three names have separated themselves from the rest of the pack and why that's not just a good thing, that's a really good thing. But first, we'll start with Pete Golding doing his mad scientist thing. Again, tinkering with the defense in a way that could land them at the top of the SEC yet again. And this year might look a little different, but it's still going to be pretty good. All of that and more right now on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. And what it is the most fun way to follow Ole Miss sports. So do us a favor, like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast. It costs nothing but helps keep all of this free. Don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. There's not going to be a trivia question at the end of this podcast. I do apologize for that. It'll be back tomorrow. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So whenever we started talking about this football team, I don't know, in January, right after the Gator Bowl, we paid attention to the offensive side of the ball because of the rise of Austin Simmons, because of the weapons that were transferring in. The transfer portal was very offensive heavy, and Pete Golding would bring in a safety. He'd bring in a cornerback. There were several players that were coming in, but it wasn't at the same level of flash as the offensive side of the ball. So everybody naturally assumed, all the experts and everyone, that there'd be a little bit of a step back this year. Whenever you lose a Princely Amon-Mielon and a Walter Nolan and a J.J. Pegues and a Jared Ivey and a Chris Paul and a Trey Amos, and we can go on and on and on, John Saunders, you automatically think there is going to be a big step back. And we went into spring practice this year thinking there was going to be holes in the secondary, which there were. If you look at who they went and got in the spring transfer portal, they still needed more secondary athletes. And it kind of got interesting and it looked weird. And you're like, okay, Ole Miss is going to have to outscore some people this year, I think. I think the defense is going to take a real step back. But as fall camp has happened and started, you realize that that's not the case. That Pete Golding has been moving pieces around the chessboard this whole time to get them in the exact right spots. And he is very, very good at doing that. And on the defensive line, it's gone from, okay, there's going to be a big step back to, I don't know if there's going to be much of a step back. On the linebackers, there's like, I don't know if there's going to be much of a step back. The cornerbacks, we'll talk about that in the next segment. They're pretty close to wrapping that room up. The problem spot on the defense is the very back end, and there's a chance that that's going to get taken care of as well. Pete Golding is really good at this, is what I'm talking about. And we have gone from Ole Miss being a problem child that's going to take a step back to potentially being right where they were in defense in the Southeastern Conference a year ago. Now, it might look a little bit different. It might. When you look at last year's team, they were historically good at yards per carry against. They led the SEC in both scoring offense and scoring defense. It is not the defense's fault, really, that Ole Miss lost those games. Garrett Nussmeier made a play. They had trouble offensively down against the Florida Gators, and the offense was not very good against the Kentucky Wildcats. Wasn't necessarily the defense's fault. Were there busts? Were there mistakes? Sure, absolutely. But Pete Golding, for the most part, did his job last year. And he is doing his job again this year. The defensive player of the scrimmage on Saturday was Prince Will Amon-Mielen. Not Princely Amon-Mielen, Prince Will Amon-Mielen, who is a little bit of a different player than Princely. I had a phone call today where they were talking. It's like, listen, the one thing you need to look at the ends in this defense that they have is how good they are at setting the edge. That was a problem in the Florida game. That was a problem in the LSU game, setting the edge. This defensive line, this defensive end unit has the ability to do that in spades. So when you look at a Deshaun Womack or a Cam Franklin or other side of the field, Prince Will Amon-Mielen, it's interesting to see the toys that are in the toy chest, because I talk all the time about this defense going from good to great is going to be about the interior of the defensive line demanding double teams. If you can demand double teams on the interior of your defensive line, it's going to make everybody else's job easier. And you have 4 and 5 star players in all of the two deep on the defensive line. You have one of the better defensive lines in the Southeastern Conference as it sits right now. I guess probably Georgia, talent-wise, would have a little bit better. Oklahoma would probably be in that ballpark as well. But for the most part, Ole Miss is not going to come across a defensive line that's as good as theirs. That interior of the defensive line, Xavier Harris and Jam Brown or William Eccles, whoever wins that job, them demanding double teams, which Xavier Harris is absolutely going to be a guy that demands a double team. If Jam Brown or William Eccles can be effective on the other side of the ball, all of a sudden those linebackers can go sideline to sideline with little to no traffic. Prince Will Amon-Mielen can be lined up on a tackle or a running back or a tight end. The same thing goes for Cam Franklin or Deshaun Womack. The front seven of this defense has a chance to be very good to elite. Lane Kiffin, in his press conference yesterday, talked about the front seven, just flat out said, yeah, these guys are really good. These guys are awesome. These guys make the offensive line struggle. And when you have an offensive line in the scrimmage where I think it was P.J. Wilkins was out there with the ones at right tackle, which, by the way, he's going to play because whenever they've needed interior tackle players or interior guard players, he's been there. And he's the person that got moved to the right, not Diego Pounds, not Terez Davis. It was P.J. Wilkins. And I think that was important for this scrimmage to put some stuff on film. But I digress. With this defense coming together, and we're going to talk about the corners in the next segment because that's impressive too. There's only one real trouble spot on the defense right now, with 3 weeks left to go until the Georgia State game. Now, a lot of it will not be decided until they line up on the field and actually start playing games. But to get to the starting place that you want to be at, and Pete Golding wants this defense to be at, they are pretty much there. Prince Will Amon-Mielen being the defensive player of the scrimmage. Suntarine Perkins had a pick 6 in the scrimmage. This defense, especially the front seven, are going to be one of the strengths of the team. I think right now, the leaders in the clubhouse are the defensive front seven and the offensive wide receivers. Those are the best two positions on this football team, and we'll see exactly how that looks. Listen, who had the cornerback position sorting itself out early in fall camp? Yep, me neither. We'll break all of that down next. We've all been there, logging in early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot in line for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should not be about waiting in line and ticket shopping. It should be about making memories. And that is where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the show gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last minute deals. If you've ever wondered what your view would actually look like before you buy, their app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, who had the cornerback room getting sorted out less than 3 weeks into fall camp? That was pretty interesting with the way that everything was situated in the spring. What we were absolutely sure was Jalen Braxton was going to come in to be the replacement for Trey Amos. And that didn't quite work out. They had some problems on the back end of the defense. But if you look at the players that are consistently showing out, you have Antonio Kite, you have Ricky Fletcher, and you have Chris Graves. Those are the three names that are kind of on the tip of everybody's tongue going into the first game. Now, we were one of the first shows to start talking about Ricky Fletcher a couple of weeks before that happened. We did a show about Prince Willem Monmiel, and we did shows about we have done a pretty good job networking wise getting stuff out there. And I'm pretty excited about that, if we're going to be honest about it. And you can go to our subtext link that's down in the description and join up for insider information. Whenever I hear something, I put it on there and only on there. Prevents all the information sharing and people doing what they need to do. But that is an opportunity for you to see and take advantage of the network that we have created. And the cornerback room, Ricky Fletcher, everybody's excited about Ricky Fletcher. He has a chance to be the Trey Amos in this class. And he was somebody that came over from South Alabama in the summer, in the spring, in that late window. And he is getting a grasp on the defense, but his one-on-one coverage ability is really, really good. Ricky Fletcher was a really good player in 2023. In 2024, he got injured. Similar story to Jalen Braxton and Luke Haas and Patrick Kutas and those guys. Got a little bit injured, transferred out, landed on the team. They're very happy to have him. They're really fired up to have him, honestly, if we're going to talk about that. You have Antonio Kite, who was at Alabama. And the rule on top of everything else is a defensive back is a really good player if he was signed by Nick Saban. Antonio Kite was signed by Nick Saban, and he transferred to Auburn and then eventually went to Ole Miss after about 6 months on the Plains. And the other one is Chris Graves, who everybody forgets. It was a top 100 player coming out of high school. He's a really good player. He was a guy that transferred out of Miami to Ole Miss. Looks like Graves is going to get some playing time this season. It looks like all three of them are going to get a good bit of playing time. Now, what needs to be worked out is the whole boundary versus field question. Which corner is going to be towards the boundary? Which corner is going to be towards the field? And what I mean by that is the cornerbacks play not based on a left or a right. It could be a short side, like if it's on a hash mark, the short field side versus the wide field side, depending on your skill set of what's going on. They still have to figure that out in the three players, and they will compete all the way through. And with another scrimmage on Saturday and the one after that, there's still a couple of opportunities to go. Now, this scrimmage coming up on Saturday is the next most important date in this Ole Miss football team's year. You need to take advantage because this is the last time you really go for it in a scrimmage. On the next weekend, is going to be a mock game. And that is basically about everything but the football. You want, in that situation, your communication down. You want the players to line up and the 11 players to go in for substitutions. You want to make sure all 11 of them all around, they know exactly where they're supposed to be on a third down or a second down or whenever they are supposed to line up. If they use those 10 spot mats, that is what that is actually for. So this scrimmage on Saturday is the next most important date in Ole Miss football. And the back end of that defense is where the question marks lie. You know, whether it's Wydell Williams or Sage Ryan or Nick Call or Jalen Braxton getting healthy. I think they want Jalen Braxton to play that free safety position. I think that's what they want. Or is it going to end up being some of the young guys, you know, LaDarian Clardy or Keon Young or Cortez Thomas? There's still 2 weeks left of camp. We are in that weird purgatory phase that's in the middle. Camp's been going for 2 weeks, and there's still a week and a half left until it's done. Right in the middle. It is kind of what it is. So we'll see. The very back end of that defense is going to be so important. And TJ Banks actually wore a helmet and went through walkthrough yesterday. The player that allegedly took a bullet in Memphis. Dante Core was out there and took part in the scrimmage. Another one of the players that was kind of involved in that scenario. So it's good that it's kind of starting to normalize a little bit. And the back end of that defense has a chance to be pretty good if they let it be, if they make the plays. Kapina Gushikin, that's somebody that is a true box safety. He's going to be asked to play the hybrid role, linebacker and safety. He's not the biggest person in the world. You worry when he matches up on players like Caleb Odom that has him by 4 or 5 inches. So Ole Miss defensively, it's not going to look exactly like it looked a year ago. It's going to be effective. If you remember in 2023, Pete Golding took that unit, and that was a pretty good unit. They completely shut down Penn State. And it's the way it is. They completely shut down teams on the way to 11 wins that season. So Pete Golding can take different tiers of talent and make them pretty good units. And in that unit in 2023, they were pretty salty. They were pretty good. It was kind of tough to run on that unit, and they didn't have a Princely Amonmielen or a Walter Nolan. So we will see what it looks like for Pete Golding when the Georgia State Panthers kickoff happens a little under 3 weeks from now, and especially when they go on the road to Kentucky. So we will see how that goes indeed. Seriously. All right. So in our final segment, we talk about Ole Miss coming in at number 21 in the AP Top 25 and why they'd be ranked much higher if there were fewer ball knowers voting on it. We'll talk about that next. So the AP Top 25 was released, and Ole Miss came in at number 21. Again, I can't really necessarily play the disrespect card when Ole Miss is 21. Now, Missouri can play the disrespect card. They came in the others receiving votes at about number 33. And I think Missouri is going to be a pretty good team, and they play nobody. They don't leave the state of Missouri until the end of October or something like that. I think Missouri is going to be a pretty good team, and they got absolutely jobbed by the AP Top 25. When looking at the AP Top 25, Texas at number 1, Penn State number 2, Ohio State number 3, Clemson number 4, Georgia number 5, Notre Dame number 6 in their annual spot in the top 10, Oregon at number 7, Bama at number 8, LSU at number 9, Miami at number 10. Then you have Arizona State at number 11, number 12, Illinois, number 13, Locked On Gamecocks, the South Carolina Gamecocks, number 14, the Michigan Wolverines, number 15, the Florida Gators, 16, SMU, 17, Kansas State, 18, Oklahoma, 19, Texas A&M, 20, Indiana, 21, Ole Miss, 22, Iowa State, 23, Texas Tech, 24, Tennessee, and 25, Boise State, which obviously from this chart, my first impression is we don't have a Boise State site. So if you know anybody that wants to do a Boise State podcast, it's here. It's available for you to do that. Now, this poll started 100 years ago and is part of our dysfunctional college football national championship giving over the better part of that century. Basically, until about 2014, the AP had a say in who won the national championship. And if you go to Ole Miss and look in their trophy case, the Grantland Rice Award is in there. That was for the 1960 national champion. That was the main trophy that was given out. If you have that, it doesn't matter which national championship you claim, that was kind of the national championship for that year. So Ole Miss at number 21, and like I said, it's hard to get outrage about Ole Miss in that position. But when you look at what happened, there were 14 non-ball knowers, and I want to take a time to basically say, do your job better, essentially. John Wilner on there, not ranked. These are all people that had Ole Miss not ranked this year. Now, if you look at all of their list, this is from collegepolltracker.com. You can see every team they voted for. I think John Wilner had UNLV at number 12. Nicole Auerbach, if you go look at her comedic list of teams. Pete Yannetti, Jamal Sit or something like that. David Briggs. They all had Ole Miss out, but they would have somebody like Baylor at number 12, Nebraska at 16, UNLV at 12. And it was annoying. Some of these people have deep intrinsic biases against the SEC. They make money off of being against the SEC, and Ole Miss was their whipping boy this time. But this is 14 names that didn't vote Ole Miss in the top 25, and Ole Miss still came in at number 21. Ole Miss probably, if these 14 voted similarly to the rest, Ole Miss is probably 18, 17, somewhere in that ballpark. But these 14 non-ball knowers, do your job better. Okay, if you're going to do this, take this seriously. Reese Davis is not above this either. He's on this list as well. Reese Davis put Baylor like number 12 or something like that. There are lots of extreme picks of people that didn't know what they're voting for. Somebody on this list is from Auburn. That's obviously a hate pick. Somebody put Florida at number 7. They're not going to win 9 games. It is a weird situation. And like I said, this poll is only there because it's been there for 100 years. It means absolutely nothing. The moment we came up with a college football playoff, the AP poll ceased to matter at all. The 1 year since the playoff has started that they decided to be relevant again is when they awarded what I think it was Central Florida or something like that, the national championship. And Central Florida claimed all of that. It's ridiculous. But the cliff notes to this is this poll does not matter. The first poll that actually matters is in November in the college football playoff poll. And there's a whole lot of people using this poll now since it doesn't matter for their political games and trying to make money. And if you look at what they voted for and where the teams are, it's as clear as day of what could happen. All right. So real quick, like I said, we talked last segment about TJ Banks being out at the walkthrough. I do want to add on real quick before I get out of here. talked with somebody about Austin Simmons, wanted to dig into the Austin Simmons scrimmage thing just to have some information for everybody. They said it wasn't as bad as people made it sound. He struggled a little bit early in the practice, got a little bit better at the end. It was matched up, and that was confirmed by Lane Kiffin in his press conference. It was one of those things with the interceptions. It was a tip ball, I think. I think it was him forcing a pass in when there was a robber on the field. He didn't see it. That was the bad interception of the day. And stuff like that Austin Simmons. We talked on the show yesterday that it was an opportunity for Pete Golding to try and fool him because the defensive coordinators that he's going to see is going to try and fool him. So it was a good learning experience. Lane Kiffin looked happy at his press conference yesterday. And that kind of lets you know that over the last 2 weeks, we've been pretty right. We've been pretty much hitting the nail on the head. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. No trivia question today. Didn't quite have the time to do that with practice and all of that. Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday and Thursday, there will be trivia questions back as well. So thank you very much for tuning into that. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the video. It helps the show, and it's totally free. Hey, give us a subscription and a 5-star review on the podcatchers as well. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes in college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.